You're listening to The Echoes with me, Emily Andrew, the self-development podcast that explores personal stories, powerful tools, and an insight into the wide world of mental, physical, and spiritual health. Get ready to get curious, be inspired, and connect in. My guest this week is the wonderful, beautiful Bergy. Bergy is a human design reader and quantum healing hypnosis techniques practitioner. She's been on a spiritual path since a wake-up call in 2012 and has read about and explored many different modalities, searching for answers ever since. It wasn't until she stumbled upon human design that she realized that there, in fact, exists a blueprint to our lives that not only gives us an explanation for how we're all unique and different, but also concrete tools for how to make decisions and use our energy in the world. She became fascinated by it and finished her HD reader training in 2022 and has since offered readings to people from all over the world. And she combines it with her QHHT Practitioner and Yoga instructor training, and she says she loves guiding people back into their true or highest selves. I mention it in the podcast. I've actually had a reading from Bergy, and the way that she holds space is beautiful. I have been banging on about human design in the Echoes already, and I'm really excited that I have somebody like Bergy on to make it so accessible and understandable. So I know that you are going to get something brilliant from this episode. I can't wait to hear your feedback. And without further ado, here is Bergy. I am super excited about today because I have been banging on about this subject for quite a while. It's something that has absolutely changed the way that I see myself and those around me. I've got somebody who is a human design reader, and I'm super excited to have you on because you have actually read me a few days ago, which was such an incredible experience, and I will talk more about that later. But how are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really, really good. I have something called an emotional wave, which we will into a little bit later. But the past few days, I've been low on my wave, which means I've been feeling kind of down. But now I'm back out and feeling happy. So I'm really, really happy that we're doing this today.
Amazing. Yeah, me too. So for people that don't know you, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and what you do?
Sure, thanks. Yes. So my name is Bergy. My Norwegian name is Bergljot, but since it's really difficult to pronounce in English, I just go by Bergy. And I am a human design reader and a yoga teacher and a QHHT practitioner. And I was trained by Day Luna, and I think you know them from before. And if you know, you listen to
Yeah.
Emily's podcast, I think you've talked about them on your podcast before. They're really, really amazing. Love them. And yeah, I do human design readings in person, but also online on video. So anyone in the world can contact me for a reading.
If you're not convinced by the end of this podcast episode to go and book a session with Bergy, I don't know what will convince you because honestly, I'm just so lit up to be able to have somebody who's so aligned with their design, and yeah, I'm just so excited about it. So I guess the big question to start off with is what is human design? When people are talking about human design, how would you describe it? And what do you feel like it's useful for?
Yeah, good question. So we'll get right into it. Human design is a system that was channeled in the 80s by a man called Ra Uruhu. And it sounds a little bit spacey since it's channeled, but actually, when you dive into it, you realize that it's super practical. And it's actually a blueprint of how you're supposed to interact with the world based on your energy type. And it shows you all these specific gifts that you have that makes you you. It shows you how you're unique and different from everyone else. And that's why it's also called or referred to as the science of differentiation. And so it's just this beautiful, practical system with tools that you can apply in your daily life in order to find alignment and to stop fighting your energy and actually, embrace it, and as a form of self-love to lean into it, and it kind of helps to kind of shoot you into the path that you're meant to, so to speak. I love giving readings to point it out to people, to give them kind of a recognition of their own unique selves, and to really help them see themselves in a new light, sorry. That's what really lights me up about it, to be able to gift it to someone else. And I think, it's for everyone. It's for a parent, learning what your child is huge. And just relating to the other members of your family is huge. It can help to heal family dynamics. In the workplace, it's amazing if you know your coworkers, how they like to work, how you can work with them. So yeah, it's basically for everyone. And it's also based on the exact time and place where you were born, because it's including Western astrology. So if you know the exact time that you're born, then you can look up your chart anywhere online.
There was a meme that somebody brought to my attention, and it said, if a girl asks you what time and place you were born, run.
Yes. Love that. Yes.
It's wild though, because I think when I first heard about human design and I heard that it was this channeled thing, I, coming from the skepticism club, as I always did, I thought, right, okay, I don't really understand how this could fit. But there was something about it that made me curious. And personally, I haven't quite got into the kind of the other personality type tests, or those kind of aspects. It never sat with me. But when I found my design, it was so strange because it just made so much sense. And a lot of the time, I've got I've got an app which basically I like I said, I think I said it on a podcast, I'm like Dexter. I've got like so many different people's designs in my app. But it's amazing because there's so many different people, and but their designs really fit them. And it's wild that something that's channeled, it is based on different elements, isn't it, with astrology and the I Ching and lots of things like that. But how it is so accurate.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. And that's the fun thing about giving readings as well, to just see people feel so seen and recognized, because you're putting words to what you've always felt about yourself, but you've never been able to put words to it, because we're kind of conditioned to fit into a box and to be liked by society. And we're not supposed to stick out because it's dangerous, because you could be outcast. And, that's our biggest fear. And, for many of us, anyways. But to actually feel that you're so fully seen from just using a system based on the chakra system, and what you referred to earlier, it's mind-blowing how accurate it is. And I also think that we're kind of actually moving into a new age now, where the channeled is maybe not so strange anymore and alienated. It's actually becoming more normal as people open up to these things, and to energy, and to just sensitivities, or more people are becoming more sensitive. And so I feel like, even though it feels like, because it's a channeled system, it might not have the credibility, in putting quotes, that a scientific research experiment would, then we're moving into a new age where it's becoming more and more acceptable, I think, from without that many questions.
Yeah, 100%. And I always go back to the idea that, the meridian system in EFT, that was this energy system that's been used in Chinese medicine for years and years. And now they've actually found the primovascular system, which basically is that system, that meridian system. And they've got, science is catching up. And I think sometimes being able just to, if something fits you, allow yourself to suspend your disbelief for a bit, because actually it could help you way more than it could ever hurt you. So I think it's one of those things where, as long as you respect other people's energies, which every single person that I know who does really align with human design, they do this. They're not pushy. They're not, oh, well, you are this, so you are this. And that, there is such a beautiful, nurturing element to human design, which I love. Um, and I just think, yeah, as long as you've got that everyone can everyone can find where they fit and what they believe in. But if you can just suspend your disbelief just for a minute, and you might be so surprised, which is something I really adore.
Yes, I love that. Love that perspective. Yeah.
So let's talk about the design types. I guess that's probably the best thing to start, because when you first come up, and there's lots of websites, and we can put some of them in the show notes. Of you found your birth date, you found your birth time, which is often a big big issue for a lot of people, because birth certificates don't really have them on it, so you've got to rely on your parents. Um, and you type it in, you get this chart, and it looks quite insane in a good way. But the first things, from what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, to really focus in on is one of the first things is your type. So could you tell me a little bit about what different types there are, and maybe just a bit of information? Obviously, you won't be able to go into full detail, but just a bit about each one.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you in terms of first looking up your chart. It can seem really overwhelming. There are so much information there, so many numbers, lines, colors, figures. It just looks crazy, like you said, but it is in a good way. I agree. The first thing, you're totally right. Look up what type you are, because that really describes the way that your aura or your energetic field interacts with the world. So there's 5 different types, and there's the generator, manifester, manifesting generator, projector, and reflector. So when you look up your chart, one of those will be your type. And like I said, it totally describes the way that you will interact with the world, and also how others will perceive you and kind of react to you. So, if you are a generator, for instance, your aura is open and enveloping. People will feel naturally comfortable in your presence, kind of like that warm, fuzzy kind of feeling. And you might not be a people person. That's another part of your chart. That's okay. But people might naturally feel drawn to you, and they see you as a really capable person, so they might ask you for things. And your strategy, which is you know, really, really, really important, is called to respond. And you do this by listening to your gut feeling. Whenever something comes up, whenever someone asks something of you, or if you're moving your body around and standing in front of different things, or yeah, really dropping from your head down into your body, relying on your gut feeling, you'll feel that expansion, that uplifted feeling. That's a yes for you. And if you feel a contraction, that's a no for you. And if you feel nothing at all, that's a no for now. So that's kind of one of the big pitfalls of being a generator, is to kind of say yes or no, or excuse me, to rather say yes to too many things, because you kind of could be a people pleaser. So just that's a pitfall. Just be aware of that. If you don't feel anything, just say no, because it's not right for you in the moment. That's a big one. So trying to not go into too much detail here. I love talking about this, so I'll try to keep it kind of concise. We'll move over to the manifester. So they have a closed aura, which means that they're really designed to focus on their own knowings and their own urges and their own creativity, and to really just follow what they're feeling, and what the universe brings them. They feel this like burst of energy, and they really feel like doing this random thing. And their strategy is to inform others of whatever it is that they're doing before they do it. And the reason for that is, now I'm speaking from experience because my partner is a manifester. And when he does something without telling me, I get so confused and hurt, and feel like, why didn't he include me in his plans? But it could be something as small as just going to the store, or taking the dog for a walk. Anything like that. Doesn't have to be a big thing. But when he informs me first of whatever he intends to do, I just feel so happy, and just included in his plans. And the universe has designed it this way so that people will actually aid manifestors with whatever they're informing. They will draw the right people to you to contribute and complete your projects that you start. So, as a manifestor, one of the things and conditionings that may feel really big for you is that you feel like you have to complete everything that you start, and try to let go of that. And if you inform, see if you can play around with this, and feel like you can draw the right people to you who can complete it for you.
Mm.
So then we have the manifesting generator, and that's kind of a hybrid between these two. So the aura is similar to that of a generator, but different from a generator. They're multi passionate, and they'll feel kind of scattered, maybe. So conditioning might be like they're too much, too loud, too all over the place, too flaky, too energetic. They got this sacral chakra just fueling them, and all these inspirations from the universe just kind of drawing them in all different places, also meaning that they will get asked by a lot of people to do things for them because they have that capable essence to them. But they will also have this feeling that they can't and don't want to complete all the projects that they're doing because they're trying something new for 2 weeks, and then they're so quick and capable they'll master that, and then they'll want to move on to something different, which is traditionally not valued in society as much. You're supposed to stick to whatever you start and so on. So if you're a manifesting generator and find that out, um, yes, congratulations, you're an amazing person. But just let yourself be you and let yourself run with those urges, because that's what makes you magnetic. Moving on to projectors. So that's what you and I are. And we are a little bit different because we don't have our sacral center defined, which means we don't have that consistent fuel in our bodies. We don't wake up with a full battery every day. It'll come in ebb and flow for us, our energy. So some days we'll feel full of energy. Maybe in the afternoon, you'll feel like you got more energy, and then you got less energy. It moves in kind of flows, so to say. And us and our job is to actually give ourselves the space and the time to rest, which does not mean that you have to lie on the couch or lie in your bed and try to sleep. It could be go for a walk somewhere where you feel you can just go for and breathe, essentially, just look at the scenery, whether it be mountains or a forest or whatever, your neighborhood park or just around your neighborhood. And it could be journaling, it could be sitting at a cafe, just people watching, it could be taking your dog with you, and, anything that gives you kind of that space to just mentally process everything. Because when you do that and you open up that space, that's where the genius comes in, because projectors are here to lead and to guide and to kind of channel and to talk about these modalities and whatever you are lit up by with other people. Because we can so easily, when we give ourselves that space and time, see the next most logical step for people who are maybe generators or manifesting generators or whatever type they are, or other projectors even. And we can help to guide them if they invite us. So our aura is penetrating, and that can feel super intense for someone if they don't, if you're not invited, essentially. And that's really repelling and off-putting. So whenever projectors try to enforce their opinions or viewpoints on other people, even if it's coming from their hearts, it's coming from a beautiful place, it's often rejected. And that's a big wound in us, is that rejection and fear of rejection. And so the job is to turn it inwards and just look at whatever lights us up, what fascinates us, and then trust that what we're building by focusing and mastering our craft will attract the right people to us. And then we will respond to the invitations that come to us. So the strategy of the projector is called waiting for the invitation. So trying again to to keep it somewhat short. There's so much information we can dive into, and I love talking about this, like I said. So we'll just jump right into the next one, which is the reflector. This is the rarest type. Only about 1% of the population are reflectors. So if you're a reflector and you're listening to this, that's awesome. Um, and it's also a really special type because you don't have any of the chakras or what's called the energies or centers in human design. None of them are lit or colored in. So you may have all kinds of different gates, which are the numbers up from 1 till 64 and little lines in your chart, but none of them are actually connecting and forming a channel, which means that none of your centers are defined. What that means is that you're super sensitive and empathic, and you'll feel everyone and everything around you. So every day when you go to work, or if you work from home, whatever, the people and the environment you're in will impact you. Because if you meet someone and they have these centers defined, and you will feel that, and then you will identify with that, and you'll think that that's you. And this is so difficult because, I think as human beings, naturally, we always try to kind of define ourselves and who we are. But as reflectors, you're meant to kind of mirror back that energy and amplify that energy that you're feeling from this person so that they can learn about themselves, and you'll get tremendous insight from feeling and essentially being in this other person's shoes, which is a beautiful gift. But what you have to practice is to kind of clear it out, empty it out at the end of the day before you go to bed, maybe, whatever it looks like to you, and just allow yourself to start fresh each day. And so, this, I think, if it was me, I think it would be really, really difficult. It's probably pretty challenging to be a reflector, because you can't kind of hang on to these identities that other people have, but you want to because you do feel like it's you in the moment. And when you look up your chart, it'll say that you don't have an authority, but it's called no inner authority, depending on the website where you look up your chart. But actually, you're meant to work with the moon. You're a lunar being and not a solar being like the other four types. So that means the moon will move through 2.2 of the gates each day. Getting a little technical here, bear with me. But out of the 64 gates, it'll take approximately a full moon cycle to cycle through the chart. That means you'll feel all these impacts, and it'll connect different centers of your chart depending on what phases the moon moves through in terms of the I Ching or the 64 gates. That means when you're making a decision and you have maybe a job offer or something, or maybe it's just like you have this idea that you want to write a book and it just keeps coming to you like multiple times throughout this moon cycle, and just ask yourself how you feel about it. How does your body feel about it? Do you feel excited about that? And then that's when you make these decisions and move forward in alignment, is when it comes up repeatedly. That's a sign from the universe that this is for you, rather than when you're in a group of people and suddenly you identify with that group of people. So I think that's what I can say about reflectors while keeping it somewhat short.
It's like the whole time you were talking, obviously, because I know a few people. Well, I know one reflector. My son's a manifesting generator, as is yours.
Yes.
That's kind of how we connected, because we were like, I listened to you speaking on Day Luna's podcast, and you said, your design. I was like, we're so similar. And then you talked about your child who is also a manifesting generator. And I was like, oh, my child's a manifesting generator. So we had these similarities, which was lovely. But being able to just listen to that and to communicate it, and then to link it with the people that I know. My husband's a generator. One of my really close friends is a manifester, and we've actually been talking over the last day or so about like manifestors and how that presents in her life. And it's so brilliant to be able to understand the different types, because I do have another friend who's a manifester, and one of her biggest challenges is she just doesn't understand why some people are more kind of they sit back a bit more. They're not just going and initiating and getting things like, started and going. And when I spoke to her about human design, I introduced her to the different types. It was kind of like a little light bulb of, oh, right, okay. So not everyone is designed like me, which I mean, we can all see that collectively anyway. We're all very different. We're all unique. You're all unique in so many different ways. But I think just the validation of your type can be such an empowering thing.
Totally. I so agree. It's such a beautiful revelation just starting there. And you can work with your type for so long before going into any of the other stuff in human design. So if you can just start there, that's where a big part of that self-acceptance comes from because you realize that you're like just like your friend is like, "Oh, not everyone operates like me." And that's beautiful and that's how we're meant to be. Because when all of us kind of find our own alignment and to allow ourselves to decondition from what society has taught us that we're supposed to do and supposed to be. When we're doing that, we're allowing space for everyone else to do the same, and we can come together and work beautifully together. And I think, that's kind of where we're heading towards in the future, where people, you know, are discovering themselves and getting back to who they're born to be instead of who they're told who to be.
Yeah. And it is definitely one of those big processes, isn't it? Because I know when I first found out I was a projector, I was a bit gutted because the wait for the invitation thing felt so alien to what a lot of business, people are talk to you about. For example, you have to go out and put yourself out there, like email the people, put yourself into those situations and push and push and push. And actually it can feel really scary to then step back and wait for that invitation, whether that is, a physical, please can you come and do this for me, or if it's more of an energetic way, and starting to distinguish when you're invited to things. And it is a practice, isn't it? You're sometimes you might say something or do something, and afterwards you'll go, oh yeah, I wasn't invited there, like that wasn't in alignment for me. Um and it must probably feel quite similar for reflectors who do, like, there must be many reflectors who go, I've got to wait a whole moon cycle. Are you joking? Like, this person wants an answer from me in a week. What am I going to do? Um,
Totally.
so it's such a process, isn't it? It's not just like, oh, you'll find this information out and suddenly you'll have mastered this, strength. Because I guess we're always trying to learn and understand more about ourselves, but this is a way that we can support that learning.
Yeah, I agree. It's an experiment. It's often referred to as a human design experiment. So whatever you feel called to, trying to implement, if it's just a one small thing that you learn about yourself, and see how it goes, and then maybe there's another little thing that you'd like to try next. And I also really am a believer that life is, I don't want to say like peeling an onion, but that's where I ended. Sorry. But that we always get to this next layer of ourselves and this next kind of challenge. And that even if you feel like you master something, there will always be the next challenge. And then you'll get to apply the tools that you've learned so far to that challenge. And then you'll go from there to the next challenge. And, it's not going to be just once you master this and you're in alignment that it's going to be easy for the rest of your life. It's always a journey. It is a journey.
Mm.
And also, um, yeah, I love what you said too about the invitation for a projector can definitely be energetic, doesn't have to be verbal all the time. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. So if you found out that you're a projector, don't worry if it doesn't have to be a letter in the mail or something that you receive as an invitation. It can definitely be that sense that you will develop once you're sensitive and aware of it, whether the other person is open to what you're saying. And if you're stoked about whatever you do and stoked about, what you're talking about, then you can sense if people are interested or not. That's a good gauge.
Mm. And it's a little bit like with manifestors, the strategy to inform. Sometimes for quite a lot of manifestors, that feels like asking permission, but that's not what it's about, is it?
Yeah, that's also a beautiful reflection because manifestors, if they feel like they're controlled even an inch, that's awful to them. You know, they really, really dislike being controlled by anyone or anything. So, informing is not asking permission. It's the other way around, essentially. It's just you're letting other people in on whatever you're planning to do next. And you don't have to ask permission unless it's from your parents and you're not of age yet
Yeah.
for whatever reason. But yeah, totally good reflection there. It's not asking for permission. It's just letting the universe, even it doesn't have to be other people, it could be just talking to the universe, because when you're verbalizing it, because your throat is defined, and it's one of your mightiest weapons as a manifester, because when you speak it out loud, you speak it into existence energetically. That's when the magic happens. The universe will aid you, and other people will be drawn to you. And that's how the projects become alive.
So cool. There's literally so many questions, but in my head, I'm like, I want to make sure I ask the questions that if somebody has never come to human design before, which I think quite a lot of the people that maybe listen to the echoes, they may have only just come across it a little bit. I want to give them as much value from this kind of conversation as possible. So I'm really drawn to talk about the authorities, if that's okay, because a lot of the time in, society, we will say, just trust your gut, listen to your
Totally.
gut, trust your gut. And actually, it's not always the case, is it?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're so right. This is because approximately 70% of the populations, give or take, are either generators or manifesting generators. So together they make up about 65 or 70%, depends, whatever statistics you look up, but it's the majority of people. And that means many of these people, or, all of them have this sacral defined, which means that their strategy is to respond. But many of them also have a sacral authority, which means that they are meant to follow their gut feeling of whatever feels good in the moment. And they're letting their bodies guide them in their life. So they can kind of visualize that, their bodies are kind of like magnets that will kind of pull them in the right direction if they let them, instead of trying to always mentally think of what the right next step is, or if the pros and cons of everything, and future tripping, which is a big one. Yeah, so if you see that your authority is sacral, then know that your gut, and when you ask yourself, your body, tune into it. Like I described earlier, it's that uplifting, expanded feeling if it's a yes for you, contraction, heavy, sluggish maybe if it's a no, and then if it's nothing at all, it's a no for now. So that's sacral authority. And then the other one, that's a really big one, approximately 50% of the population have this, regardless of, the four types that have authorities, so to say, is emotional authority, which both you and I have. There's a few different manifestations of this because there are a few different types of waves depending on which channel it's called. So which channel you have. And that's the solar plexus. That's the little triangle on the right hand side of your chart. If that's colored in, that means that you have an emotional authority. So, what that means is that you have one day you'll wake up and you feel so blue, so down. And then mentally, what we maybe have been trained to do is think, oh, why am I feeling so low? Oh, maybe it's because of this, or maybe it's because of that. And then we'll try to find reasons for why we're feeling so down. But what in truth, this emotional wave, like the name implies, goes up and down. So some days, or during the day even, you'll feel amazing, and then you'll feel down, and then you'll feel neutral. And what that means is, you can actually tend to say yes to things when you're feeling really high and super excited and high on your way. And you can say no to things when you're really low on your way. But if you can try to wait out the duration of one cycle of your wave, which you'll feel it once you become aware of it with a little bit of attention to it, you'll kind of feel where on the wave you are. When you're neutral, that's the golden place for you to make your big decisions in life. So it doesn't really have to be applied to all decisions in your life. You can, just make small decisions with your mind or whatever you, in whatever way you'd like to make them. But for those big decisions, especially, it's going to help you to use the neutral point of your wave to really commit to something or not. And that means that you might need a little bit of time to make those decisions. And that's kind of another thing that society, like you said earlier, with, someone needs this answer now, and
Mm.
it's super stressful. But if you can say to that person, you know what, I really value this offer or this thought and this, what you're bringing here, but can I please think about it for a day or two or a week, even if you can afford that, to really allow yourself to feel into your wave and to make that decision from a neutral place.
Mm.
So those are the two most common ones. And then you have something called splenic authority, which is super cool. It's if you have the little triangle on the left-hand side colored in, that's your spleen. And it's all about intuition and it's all about making decisions in the moment. So asking yourself, does this feel right to my body right now? And let your body say yes or no, and maybe no for now. You'll it's difficult, and since I don't have this, obviously it's hard to describe, exactly how it feels, but it is an intuitive hit, and it can feel like a whisper in the beginning because it can be so subtle, and especially when you're not used to tuning into it. So it can be a bit of a tricky one to work with if you're not, if you haven't used it consciously before. So when you first learn about it, just give yourself some grace there and just see if you can lean into that immediate feeling. If it's an uplifting feeling, a lightness, a clarity, you'll feel inside your body the clarity, then that's a yes for you. And then the same thing, it's if it's heavy or like slow or like dark or just contracted or anything like that, that's a no.
Mm.
Mm.
I have a question about the spleen
Yeah.
because, and obviously, this is something I read, so it might be totally wrong. But it was talking about like the spleen being like our fear kind of center.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of the time, if you have a splenic authority, there might be an element of fear, but it's almost like is it like nervousness and excitement, or is it nervousness and worry? Is that another way of kind of leaning into that, or is that
Yes.
separate?
No, you're so right. That's a beautiful way to put it too. When you have your definition in your spleen, if you feel like there's a fear undertone there, just be aware of it. And the whole idea here is just to mentally, so to say, notice if that fear is there. Because it doesn't have to be a no, even if it's a fear, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
so really see if it's a no, you'll feel it. It could be fair included with that too, but it really could be fear and excitement for a yes as well. So just
Mm.
being mentally aware that the fear might intertwine with either answer, and to not um, decline anything or to say no to something just because that has that little element of fear and excitement to it. So yeah.
Mm. There was a quote that I read somewhere, and it was like, the difference between fear and excitement is the breath. And I loved that. And I just thought, like,
Wow.
it's so true, isn't it? Because you get the same like feeling, but when you're scared and there's fear, that it feels very contracting and very, I can't breathe. But you're excited, you've got more of that expansiveness in your body,
Totally.
which I thought was
I
such a
love
cool way of
that.
describing it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have splenic authority, what Emily just said, just feel into that. Bring it with you for going forward.
So tell us
And
about some of the other ones then.
yeah, sure. There's a couple different ones that are much rarer. So the next one is an ego projected authority. So if you see that, you're a projector type. And what that means is that that tiny little triangle, which is called the ego center or the heart center, that's filled in, and you don't have any of the other ones filled in that I just mentioned. So that's your authority, and it's all about, do I want this? Does this serve me? And this is another big one in terms of conditioning in our society because we're not, taught to focus on ourselves because it's egotistical. And yeah, for all the reasons that everyone knows. but it's actually, this is, this is the way that you're meant to be. You're designed to actually ask yourself that question, to with validity and authenticity, and to really feel into it, to allow yourself to go there. And it's so scary when you find out that you have this, I think, at least the people I've talked to, because it feels so, wrong, essentially. But really, really ask yourself, how can this serve me? Does this serve me? And when you feel that yes, it does, then that's when, that's a yes for you. And then if it's a no, then you'll feel that it doesn't serve you and it's not in your best interest. And how this can be looked at is, when you do this, you're lit up and you follow this authority and it's kind of guiding you into alignment, so to say. You impact everyone around you with your energy too, right? So, because we all are connected, it's one big energy field. So, whenever we live in alignment, it's actually not just egotistical and to our own, benefit. It benefits the whole, it lifts the vibration of the planet. So, remember that if you have this authority, don't beat yourself down for actually focus on yourself. This is just part of your design, and a way for you to make decisions. So it's a beautiful tool for you to use. The same goes for an ego manifested authority. And if you have that, it means that you're a manifester. And so it's essentially the uh, um, same question that you can ask yourself: how does this serve me? And does this serve me? And then you take it from there. And the only difference being that you are a manifester, and you can also use your throat here to actually speak it out loud. It can be really helpful for you to just really, if you're alone, maybe preferably, talking about, talking it out loud. How can this serve me? And then just letting yourself let it flow through you. So those two are quite interesting in terms of, the conditioning from society. And then we also have the mental or the environmental authority, which is also a projector authority. If you have this, you're a projector. And that means that you have no definition below your throat center. So none of the motors are defined. So you don't have you have maybe even less energy than you and I, for instance, are something called energy projectors, because we have those motor centers defined, except for the sacral. Now, the mental projector, my best friend is a mental projector, and her way of making decisions is to give herself some space and time to really um, to go there mentally, to actually think about, you know, all the different options and opinion or options or outcomes from whatever decisions she's making. She's talking it out loud, so she's just letting her throat just, go and use me or other friends as a sounding board. And then it's also really helpful for her to move around in different locations, because the different locations will have different energy signatures, and so will have different impact on how you feel about things. So if you feel kind of stuck, then move your body around, and that will help you to come to a decision faster. So it's kind of an interesting authority, because in general, human design is teaching us about how we can drop from our heads into our bodies, into our hearts, into, our soul. But for mental projectors, it's all about, actually allowing yourself time and space to just ramble and to just journal, or excuse me, to journal, or just talk to people and hear what comes out, and what feels good, and what feels authentic to you, and making decisions from that place.
Just love it. I just love it.
It's a lot of information and it's so much to dive into, and I love talking about this. I'm so happy to be here talking with you about this, and hopefully your listeners will get something out of it.
You light up when you talk about it. And I found I was lucky enough to receive a reading from you this week, and the way that you communicate, because there is quite a lot of information when it comes to human design. Like, we've kind of skimmed the surface, and I think when you first get into human design, your authority, your type, and maybe your profile are probably the main things to really understand about first.
Yeah.
But there are so many different aspects looking at things like, your environment and your gates and your channels and all of these different things. And but the way that you communicated them to me were just so clear and so calm and so concise. And it was just a really beautiful way of presenting something that could be quite, confusing. And you it just make it all so clear. So I'm so grateful that you're on, and I feel like I could talk to you about this for hours and hours and hours on end. But um what do you think, we've apart from what we've covered, um what is there something for you that you are really keen to share about, either about human design in general, or if you're navigating this journey, or um anything? Is there something that you're really passionate about sharing now?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I love that question, and thanks for everything. I feel like what I would love people to know, and leaving this episode with this feeling, is that you are here to shine as your true self. When you were born, you already knew this, but then we forget as we grow up, and we're maybe not growing up in households that kind of nourish us in the human design way and respect our energy types and so on. So most of the people listening now probably didn't have parents who knew about human design. And it's all about, you know, coming back to who we're meant to be, who we know we are at the core, because when we do that, we allow others to do the same. And the more people who do this, the more beautiful the world will be. And I think that we're heading into a really beautiful and bright future. So that's what my main message here is.
I love that as well, because you're right. A lot of us, I don't think, well, I definitely didn't have parents that knew about human design, but I think the beauty of it is that we can be those parents, by understanding, if for people that do have children, you're more likely to hopefully remember their date of their time of birth than you are your own, and so being able to to support their unique type and their unique authority, and learning how to do that, especially if you're different, you're a different type in a different way. That's such an amazing thing, because we're able to allow that uniqueness, and for them to really step into their own, which I just think is such an exciting prospect.
Yeah. Oh, I agree so much. I'm getting chills just hearing you talk about it. Just really feeling it. Yes, this is, for the future generations, to allow them to really be themselves. How beautiful is that? That must be, one of the most beautiful gifts we have as humans, to actually be allowed to be ourselves, to be nourished and to feel confident in our decision-making process, and, to really trust that we have something to offer to the world, and we don't have to fit in and try to be anyone other than who we are. We don't have to try to change ourselves to please others. You know, what a beautiful gift.
Mm. Thank you so much, Bergy. This is honestly one of my favorite conversations. I'm so grateful to you. For anyone that wants to know more about human design, or maybe interested in connecting with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be here. You can find me on my website, Bergljot, which is Berglys, and the same on Instagram. But if you're curious to learn more about human design, then you can go to the kind of the original source, which is the Jovian archive. That's where I usually pull the charts when I'm doing readings from. They have, some trainings from Ra Uruhu himself, so you can check it out if you're curious more about him, and his style of channeling and and describing this information. But the Day Luna page is also really, really beautiful. So if you feel drawn to checking out the De Luna website, I think it's daylunalife.com. So highly recommend going there, and they have different courses and something called the Human Design Besties, which is amazing. So really recommend that as well.
Thank you so much. I hope that we will have another chat, because I feel like people are going to want to know even more. So hopefully in the future we'll have you back again. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you.